Good afternoon. It's our honor and privilege to welcome all of you to the weekly BW Education Wednesday Wisdom. This is the 17th month of the BW Education Wednesday Wisdom. BWEducation.com is an education community that works towards improving the stakeholders' benefits, whether it's the students, it's the teachers, or it is the promoters of educational institutions in India, or it's the policymakers. Today, we are going to talk about a unique school, a unique experiment that could become important for all the educators. We have two guests who are making this unique experiment a reality and have made it a reality in the last 2 years. Let me first introduce them, and then we'll come to what we need to discuss. Let me introduce Mr. Snehadeep Agarwal, who's the founder and chairman of the Chaman Bhartiya School. Though he's an industrialist, he has a listed entity and he set up the Bhartiya Group. But today we are going to restrict ourselves to talking to him about his passion about setting up the Chaman Bhartiya School and how is it differentiated. Welcome, Mr. Snehadeep Agarwal.
Thank you for having me, Anuragji.
The fair is all ours. And since we are discussing the Chaman Bhartiya School, I remember meeting Mr. Snehadeep Agarwal 4 years back, and he talked to me about a school called the Orsted Gymnasium School. And he talked to me about Mr. Alan Anderson, who at that time was leading that school. And let me welcome Mr. Alan Anderson, who's the director of the Chaman Bhartiya School, which is a very celebrated school, and it, in some way, was a model school for a lot of educational institutions to follow. So welcome, Alan, to this conversation. We at BW Education and BW Education Wednesday Wisdom welcome you. And along with me is my colleague Vasudha Mukherjee, who will help us in getting past the next 60 minutes. And me and Vasudha will have a conversation with you together. So let me start by asking both of you, first Mr. Agarwal, and then I'll come to you, Alan. How have been the last 17 months for you, both personally and professionally, Mr. Agarwal?
Yeah, so one of our declared objectives in Bhartiya is to, impact. We are saying, can profit and impact go hand in hand? So very close to my heart is to get into businesses where you can have a positive impact to society, to our communities, and to the world at large. So I thought, which better place to start than education, and how you can mold minds, and how you can get 4-year-olds to tell them how you can mold them to become leaders of tomorrow. So this is very, very satisfying for me. I have been talking about this for over 10 years, Anuragji. And when this school finally opened last year, so it was very satisfying to see that a thought in my head, how it became a reality. So this is very, very exciting and very satisfying. And the last 17 months, as you said, I think about a year since we opened. We opened in June of last year, right, or July of last year. And then we had to open when the pandemic happened. And Alan and team did great job and came forward, and they opened in the pandemic. So we are one of the few schools, probably the only school I know, which has laid its starting foundation year in a pandemic, and it had to start online. So many of the students by now have visited, but many of them enrolled without even having visited the school. So that means people have understood the vision. So we've got a sizable number of students, even without parents having, just the building was ready and people came in and started this, enrolled their children in the school. So thank God and thank you everyone, for believing in us. That way it's very satisfying. Right?
Thank you so much. And I'll come to the fact, let me ask the same question to Alan. And I want to come to the fact that why did you think that school that Alan ran so successfully was really a model for a lot of us to follow? And you have walked the talk, so to say. You have brought Alan, and you are trying to marry our traditional Gurukul principle with what you saw there in terms of holistic education. And I'll come to that in a moment. But let me bring in Alan Anderson, who is again very celebrated, and he doesn't really need an introduction in the education ecosystem. And as I said, he built a model school back in Europe. Alan, first of all, how does it feel to be in India? And how have been your last 17 months?
Yeah, first, thank you very much for having me here. I really look forward to this event. The last 17 months has been a mixed experience, of course, because on one hand, it has been an exciting journey to actually open the school and to see that even though we had the pandemic, as Mr. Agarwal was saying, we could actually implement most of what we wanted to do as a school in the online environment. We have worked in the school building with, when we were allowed to do it, with the school team so that we could build a school culture for the kind of school we wanted to make, which in many ways will be a different school. So we have had the community in our school, but we have also succeeded in creating a school community, even though we have only worked online. Today I met two small girls who were visiting the school. We had a tiger competition, so they were coming with their t-shirts. And they are so much part of the school community, even though they meet their friends online only. So all this has been exciting and extremely positive. And that's what I came to India for. Of course, the pandemic has made everything a mixed emotion. So I've also spent a little more time in Denmark than I had planned to do, because when the pandemic exploded, I was uncertain about what would happen and could the Indian health system provide healthcare for me and so on. So I've been a little more in Denmark, and then I would have been normally. And I've also, for some time, been a little isolated in my apartment in Bangalore. But I'll say the main conclusion is that it has been extremely satisfying to actually see the school happen. I have been working for 3.5 years with the school, first with planning and designing and talking day out and day in with Mr. Agarwal about the vision, about the building, about what we wanted to do differently. So to finally see all those words coming into life, that is very satisfying.
Thank you so much, Alan. Again, to design, we talk about cultivating design thinking in students, and how you design a school has a huge impact on the learning. And we'll come to that, and we'll get both Mr. Agarwal and your inputs on that. And now, let me go to Mr. Snehdeep Agarwal. How did you encounter the school in Europe, and how did you find Alan? Give us the backstory on that, and then we'll jump into your vision for Chaman Bhartiya School.
Okay. You see, I had gone to meet some architects about 10 years ago to Copenhagen. And there's an architecture firm called 3XN. So as I was talking to them, they said and I started to talk, and they said, we have designed a school called Orsted College, and you must go and see it, because this is a very, very innovative building. And my personal belief is that building design or any design impacts behavior. So, and how do you design buildings for what? And they were very thinking architects, very small boutique firm, but very innovative work. In that visit, I could not visit the school, but they gave me a school book and they explained me the concept. Later on, I invited this firm to India. They mentioned, of course, about Alan and the school. And then later on, I sent my architects to see the school. But Dr. Batra, this is getting Alan here is more destiny than So when I was searching for a school head, I met a lot of people in India. And I went to a Christian missionary run St. Francis School. I used to have Father Timothy, an Irish priest, as our principal. And I started to talk about education. A lot of school heads I met, I realized that they are, I went to school, I was a kid. This is 60 years ago. And most of the school heads I met, I had a very good impression because I went back 60 years. So I met 5, 10, 15. And there is a headhunting firm in Bombay. And I finally said, I am not finding, can you help me find a head of school? And they said, sure, but can we look elsewhere also? Or do we have to look only India? I said, I'm open. I mean, of course, the first choice is an Indian, but if you can look globally, I'm fine. And as would have it, they brought me 3 resumes without prompting. They brought me 3 resumes, and one of them was Alan Anderson. Now, this is not explainable, right? And I had one American who had never visited India. I had one Irish lady who had taught in Spain and come back to Ireland. And third was Alan. So I said, okay, I talked to all 2 first, and then Alan the last. As I started talking to Alan on the phone, I don't remember we doing a Zoom meeting, Alan. I think we talked on the phone.
It was on phone.
And it was fun talking to him on the phone because he had been to India. My first talk to him was that this is a school in India for Indians. What do you think? And he said, I will be excited. And I said, why? So he said, I said, you do a very interesting school and you are a founder of an extraordinary school. And every week, somebody from somewhere in the world comes to visit that school, right? If you have Prince Harry coming from UK, they would take him to visit that school. Everybody would visit that school. And he said, look, in my life, I have had all experiences, but I have never had experience outside Denmark. When we invited him here, he came to see me in my office in Delhi before he went to Bangalore. And that 3 hours was very fun conversation. And that's how I found Alan. So it so would have it, I've heard about the school and suddenly a headhunter gets me 3 resumes and one of them is Alan Anderson. And I think it was God who destined this, right? And I found Alan. It was very interesting. But then we talked about why I need to do a school. Why would I do a school? There are thousands and hundreds and thousands of schools in India, right? And I had been thinking, what would be the reason for our school? And we all talk of academic excellence in India. Yeah, this is necessary. Everybody talks of 99%. Sure, because that's necessary. And academic excellence, Indians are known for maths and science and everywhere in the world. But then I said, what else can we do in this school? Can I catch one thing which as mass Indians we need? Can I do one add-on? And that becomes the determining narrative of my school. I said, I looked back and I said, we had Mughals came to rule us for 300 years. And then came the English for close to 200 years. So what did they do to our national psyche? They came to rule, so they wanted to suppress us. They were the rulers, we were the followers. So the Indian psyche, in some ways I realized that we have many ways become followers. We are so brilliant, we are bright. If I look back, one of the oldest civilizations in the world. Because of this, I said, what are we lacking en masse? Why are we just followers? Why we are not leaders? And that is when I talked to Alan and I said, I want to create leaders of tomorrow, and I want to instill. And I asked him, that I want to create leaders. And my personal belief is that if you are, when the child is 14 years, 15 years, 16 years, 17 or 18 years, when the child has to leave school, your character is done. I said, let's catch 4-year-olds and instill in her or his ear as a child that you will be the leader of tomorrow. And leader of tomorrow, when I say leaders, whether it is arts, religious leaders, political leaders, business leaders, leadership in thought. And when I discussed this with Alan, he said, this is interesting. But I said, I also have a caveat that no parent is going to send their child to my school if I don't talk of academics. One of the conditions is I want to have 99% while you create leaders, because that's my national lead, right? So there is competition. And so he agreed. So I said, let's create leaders of tomorrow, and makers of leaders is our slogan. And for that, Anuragji, we need courage. The main factor in our school that we want to instill, that it's okay to make mistakes. You know, there is a national narrative now is changing after many, many years, that, you know, we always thought making a mistake, we cannot make mistakes, that there is a social consequence of making a mistake. You can't fail. Failure is not an option, right? What I am wanting to say, we want to create courageous children and a courageous nation which says failure is an option.
By the way, I'm interrupting you, Mr. Agarwal. I believe there's nothing called failure. Experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. So a failure is also an experience which we call failure. And so I just want to kind of qualify that.
Yeah. So you can't succeed without failing, right? So if you are not ready to fail, you will never succeed at extraordinary things.
Absolutely.
So this is what I want to propose, and I want to inculcate in children's minds, that failure is okay as long as your vision is to succeed and become, you have the courage to fail, because over that only you become great leaders. So
Absolutely.
This is what we want to do.
And you know, what did you see in that school in Denmark which attracted you? We know that India is about educational excellence. We know the Gurukul school of education. We know about value education in India. But what was in that school that attracted you to that school and Alan?
You see, all of Alan's school particularly, but all of Denmark, Finland, they're all, I would say, ahead in education as a thought. As what is the thought in education? It's all about, you know, project-based learning. It's all about experiential learning. You know, you change from a rote system. I think there has been enough narrative in my country. And there has always been this discussion that if I talk to a student coming out of a school about Indian history or what you learn in history, you know, he can, through a rote, express every bit of what they read. But what is it about history that remains in his psyche? How do you create projects? And how do you create project-based learning? This Allen School was, I think, as excelled in creating a project-based learning. So how do you create projects? So even the school design, in their school, you had a flexible system, and I will give it to Alan to explain that more. But you could have a class of our school design. Normally in India, you have a fixed class system. You have a class of 25 students. But in this school, you could have a class of 2 students or 150. So a teacher would decide every day which school teacher class format you want to have. So a teacher will decide, I want to have a class of 2 students or 150 with 6 teachers, and they will do projects together. So Alan explained me this, and this was very fascinating. And he said, my whole job in the school is to every day, satisfy the wishes of every teacher. And how I can. So for this, it is important that you can have a system where you can have a class of 25 regularly, but you can also have 2 or 150? These were fascinating for me. So we took the leap and we created a building where you can have flexible classes. It doesn't mean it doesn't have normal classes in a school. It does have normal classes. But when the teacher decides that there are 2 students, they want to do some extra coaching, or 2 students have to do a project, or 150 can make into 6 groups and do projects, the space is designed to allow it.
Understood.
Alan, you
So
must say.
even when Alan started talking, he talked about the school design, the building design. So the overall philosophy all has to align, and sometimes buildings communicate a lot more than we think they communicate, right? How you design a school has to be consistent with the philosophy of learning. So let me bring in Alan. Alan, give us a sense of how you built the institution that Mr. Agarwal is talking of, and while you're building Chavan Bharatiya School, how are you bringing the best of both worlds?
Yeah.
What you did in Copenhagen and in Denmark, and the advantages and strengths of Indian education system.
Yeah. The first thing I'll mention is that I was a happy principal in Copenhagen, and I'm not a young man, so I never dreamed of moving to any other country or any other position. And in the beginning, I didn't quite understand that the headhunters were actually headhunting. I just thought they wanted advice. It was first when I talked to Mr. Agarwal that I understood they were serious. But what attracted me was the passion and the seriousness in Mr. Agarwal's communication about the school. Often school visions are just something printed on in magazines and in advertisements or on the website, and it doesn't really mean anything in the daily affairs of the school. And here I could feel that we were in this for real. We really wanted to develop future leaders for India, and we wanted to use the pedagogical methods that were necessary to do that. So we were not restricted to traditional ways of teaching and learning. And in that way, I thought I could use my more than 40 years of experience from Denmark and bring something to India. But what we are making is not a Scandinavian school or European school. It is an Indian school. But we take the best experiences from, of course, especially Scandinavia and Denmark, but from schools who try new ways all over the world. And for me, it goes without saying that you can't develop leaders without science, without academics. So I never saw a contradiction between the vision of developing leaders and academic excellence. Who would want stupid leaders? So in order to be a good leader in whatever area of the society you might be passionate about, you would need scientific thinking, you would need a high level of academics. And of course, in India, there's competition for the good universities. So there's one more reason for doing good at tests. So because of that belief that there should be no contradiction between, on one side, developing social and emotional qualities in a person and developing high-level academics, I saw that we had the opportunity here to do something that has never been done in India, but has never been done anywhere in the world. Because when schools in the rest of the world and also in Denmark try project-based learning or other forms of pedagogical experiments, it's very often with a cost to academic excellence. So what What we want to do here is to excel in both. And we strongly believe that if you change teaching from a one-sided communication from a teacher to a more student-activating, student-focused work, a student can actually learn much more than they do when they sit and sleep listening to a teacher or doing homework that is dictated by the teacher. So what we believe is by changing pedagogy, by making the students engaged in learning and teaching, then they can actually spend their time much more efficient. And then they will start working also in the evenings, because the project they are working on is so exciting that they can't not work on it. So I think that is, of course, it's a challenge to do both, but it's also something that if we succeed in doing it, and I'm based on what we have seen until now, I'm convinced we will, then we'll do something that can be a model for India and for other countries as well. Because this bridge building between social and emotional skills and academic excellence is a challenge everywhere in the world, not only in India. In Denmark, we are lacking in academics. In India, we are lacking in emotional and social development. So why not take the best from both worlds? But I do it with deep respect for Indian education tradition, because what I can see in the development of our children already after the first academic year is a seriousness in how they actually learn and attend classes and do their homework and work with projects that I can't see in Denmark. They are so disciplined and so serious and have a lot of fun too. So I'm very optimistic that we can actually reach the goal. So Mr. Agarwal didn't need to convince me that academic excellence is crucial for education everywhere. Scientific thinking must be the basis for education.
You know, Alan, I understand school because, once about 15 years back, I wrote a column, which is, one of the biggest things in Delhi to do it, or the toughest thing is to get your children into good school. And how we define a good school is also a lot of academic excellence apart from everything. And I can tell you, being a parent who has young children, that, no parents are happy with any school in Delhi. They find some fault with the school. Either it's too academically inclined or it's less academically inclined. And I'll tell you more in a bit. But there are two questions which I would have ideally taken at the end, but because they're relevant to what you just said now, what Mr. Agarwal said. Saudagar Mehboob Basha is asking, what all syllabi is covered? And Dr. Piyush Gupta is commenting and asking, it will be very interesting to understand more on the pedagogy, especially for early childhood learning. So you gave a bit of insights into that. So give us what is the kind of syllabi? Give us a peek into this. And as Dr. Piyush Gupta is asking, give us the pedagogy that enables this early childhood learning.
We have created what we call the We Lead curriculum. And we develop what we call the We Lead pedagogy. And in the We Lead curriculum, we integrate elements of ICSE and IB so that we prepare our students to make the choice between the two. But even if they choose ICSE or IB, it will still be in the framework of our leadership vision. So we will have a special take on it. But how we do it is that we have, in our curriculum, we have thousands of goals. We have goals in academics, in all the traditional subjects. We have goals in what we call the leadership pillars. And we have goals in the 21st century competencies. So in every learning activity, there will be an academic or more academic goals, there will be leadership goals, and there will be 21st century goals. So it's not a special course for leadership or a special course for 21st century goals. When we teach a math concept or a science concept, we will see to that at the same time we develop leadership skills. That can be a child that is nervous and shy. So the goal for him could be in the next project, you should do the presentation of the project, for example. On the 21st century skills, it could be that this child should be the one who's communicating about to someone outside the school. So on the surface, we have a lot more goals than a traditional school would have, but we integrate it in our activities so that we will never have a purely academic activity. It will always be combined with leadership and with 21st century competences. And we keep track on it. So if we create a project and we expect these and these goals to be reached with that project, and if we can see after the project that the learners didn't quite get there or they chose another path for that project, so we create courses where we ensure that we reach the goals. So we sit with ICSC and IB and make sure that for every grade level, we also meet their goals, but that's not our point of departure. Our point of departure is leadership. And then we see to that it's combined with academics.
Alan, yesterday when I was preparing for this, and I consciously think, though I sent the question only in the evening, in mind it goes and it's about a conversation. It can be structured, unstructured. But I came across something and I want to project that on the screen, read it out, and I want your and Mr. Agarwal's reaction to that. And we'll go and get into the Chaman Bhartiya School and what you're doing and how you did it in COVID. If Vasudha and Prerna, we can. This is a letter sent by a school principal in Singapore before the exams to the parents. And it says, "Dear parents, the exams of your children are to start soon. I know you all are anxious about your child and expecting him or her to do well. But please do remember, amongst the students who will be sitting for the exams, there is an artist who doesn't need to understand maths. There is an entrepreneur who doesn't care about history or English literature. There is a musician whose chemistry marks won't matter. There is an athlete whose physical fitness is more important than his or her marks in physics. If your child does get top marks, that's great. But if he or she doesn't, please don't take away their self-confidence and dignity from them. Tell them it's okay. It's just an exam. They're cut out for much bigger things in life. Tell them no matter what they score, you love them and you will not judge them and they will do well." So when I was preparing, I thought in some way what Mr. Snehadeep Agarwal told me 4 years back, while he is right upfront said to you that academic excellence is important and that he's weaved into the vision of the school. Clearly, holistic development is more important to you at the Chaman Bhartiya School. And I want to get Mr. Agarwal to react to that. Mr. Agarwal, give us a sense of what kind of parents interactions you had when you were getting your first set of students.
You see, I have put Alan on the spot, right? So I said, I want to beat, because every time in my time, if we scored 60%, it was excellent, right? In your time on Rag, I don't know, but in my time,
about 75% was excellent.
Excellent, right? Now everybody talks 100%, 99.9 or something, right? Now I want to settle this forever. So one brief to Alan is that I want to create students who will beat every 99.9 from any school, whether it is Delhi public school or the best school, because I see all the advertisements saying 99 and so many students and so many children got 99. So my brief is very clear that let's attempt it, because this is competitive spirit also that we are building. And if competition comes from getting the most number of marks, then why not? So Alan is on the spot and his team is on the spot, and I met them recently before he went to Denmark recently, and I had a very hearty chat, and I was supposed to speak for 20 minutes and I kept talking for an hour, right? And I said, you're all on a spot because I want to show that you can get 99 and then you can still be leaders of tomorrow. There's no contradiction. What you
Absolutely, I
said
fully
is
agree.
music to my ears. You know, what you said is music not only to my ears, it is music to everyone's ears, or should be music to everyone's ears. Why should a child feel defeated that if he gets 97% marks, right? I mean, I did not succeed. I was turned down from all business schools, you know, from all IIMs in my time, right? But it's okay. I have 20 IIMs who have worked for me, for Bhartiya, right? I'm very proud that Bhartiya could provide a platform for 20 IIMs to, you know, come and perform here. So I did, if I felt small, if I look back, I did feel, yeah, I am turned down by all IIMs and all good business schools. Now I want to tell all parents it's okay that every child has to have their own journey while we will do this. And what you just said about that letter that the principal in school in Singapore wrote should be music to every parent's ears.
Absolutely. Now, one of Mr. Jayant Bose is asking, how do you build the desired attitudes into the students? And I want to bring Vasudha into the conversation post this. So, Alan, I know it's your first batch, but also to get the right set of students and their parents with the right set of expectation is also important to build the kind of institution you want to build, right? Because you're seeding the first batch, so to say. So give us a sense of, in terms of how were the selection process and how do you build the desired attitudes in the students?
Yeah, we want to create a school for every child in India, and we don't want to be an elite school or a school for a certain layer of society, and we think that what our ideas should be implemented everywhere. So therefore, the most important thing for us has not been to evaluate and select among the students. It has been to tell the parents clearly about what kind of school we were developing, so that they knew what kind of activities they could meet, what kind of collaboration with the parents we would have, and so on and so forth. And up until now, we have had a fantastic support from the parent community, because they have taken the school, chosen the school, not in spite of what we want to do, but because of what we want to do. And to come to the next question, we should never take self-confidence out of children. The idea in our leadership pillars is exactly to support the child's social and emotional development. We talk about 5 layers: learning to live together, learning to act, learning to learn, and learning to lead. So we are very passionate about supporting the development of the child and not taking self-confidence out of it. So we have 2 things I will mention here, and we haven't implemented it yet because of the COVID situation, but we'll do it this year, no matter if we will be online for some time to come. The first thing is our passion projects. We want to help all our learners to find their passion. And we know children can shift passion from one month to month, but we want them to work for 1 to 2 lessons every week with something they have chosen themselves and they are passionate about. In the beginning, it can be dancing and music and everything. They are chess or gaming or whatever, but together with the child, we'll find an academic goal in it also. But later on, it will be more and more career oriented, so that the passion projects can take place in a company, in an institution, or wherever there are someone working with an area that the child is passionate about. So that in the end, in 12th grade, they will know that I will want to be an artist school, and therefore I want to go to this or that academy to pursue my dream, or I will want to be an engineer, so therefore I'll go to this or that engineering institute. So passion project is one thing. The other thing is mentoring. Every student in our school will have a personal mentor. In the beginning, it will be a teacher, not their own teacher, but a teacher from the school, who will have formal and informal talks with all our children to support their academic and personal development. Not talk about why didn't you do well in this or that thing. It will be student directed, but they have a grown-up friend in the school they can share and who can help them develop as a child and as a learner. Later on, we hope, and that will be part of our leadership academy, we hope that we can connect to the business community and have business people coming once a week and having a small group of 3 or 4 children they can support in their development, so that the children or the learners already in school get an idea about how can I follow my dream as a next step after 12th grade. So this is also a way where we can see that we can combine our caring for the personal and social development of the child, the leadership development, and academics. And therefore, I'm sure some of the children who will not excel in math, they will be passionate about something else, and they will find that they are good enough. Their personality is not created by the lack of math, but what they are passionate about, and that they have the self-assurance that they can actually follow that dream. But I share what Mr. Agarwal was saying about that our goal is to make everyone succeed in everything. But we are realists, so we know that some will not, but we'll do everything we can to do it. But at the same time, I think it's important that they get support to find their passion. And sometimes I know that they will have a fight at home, because many parents in Bangalore want their children to be software engineers because they are software engineers themselves. And sometimes the child will come back and tell the parent, no, I know what I'm passionate about. I want to do something else. I want to be a language teacher because I love Spanish or whatever. And we have told this clearly to the parents that we are developing future leaders, and they will already start to be leaders now. And we have heard from parents already from our first project, which was about sustainable community, that the children came home and say, why do we do this? Why don't we sort waste so that bio waste go to one side and other waste to another side? Because they had worked with that in the project, and they come home to their parents and challenge them. And I think it's a very important thing, not to have wars in the families, I want that, but to support the children's development of their passion and their personality.
Fantastic, Alan. I want to bring in Vasudha in the conversation. And I have one question that I want to ask you and Mr. Agarwal, but I'll do that after Vasudha's question. Vasudha, you, Alan, and Mr. Agarwal.
Thank you, Dr. Bhatta. Now, I normally like to ask all of our speakers about the new education policy, but since we're so deep into pedagogy right now, there is something I want to ask, because you are talking so much about marks not mattering too much and maintaining students' confidence. Now we know that the reason why marks in school matters is because marks matter to get into university. So as long as universities say that you need to have top marks, schools will always try to make sure that their students are ready to enter university. So how do you sort of maintain that? Like, how do you maintain a student's confidence, but at the same time create healthy competitiveness among them so that they're still striving to get those top marks, but not necessarily losing too much of their self-confidence in the process?
Yeah, we strongly believe in feedback and assessment. So assessment is a necessary part of learning. Assessment can come from yourself. self-assessment from your classmates, but of course also from teachers. So we develop a culture of assessment and feedback. And the teachers create a learning tracker where they track everything, every sign of learning they see in the students, so that they can have conversations with them about where they succeed, where they could improve, so that feedback is not a catastrophe and something that is decided one time for all at the exams, but something that is a natural way of conversations between teachers and learners. Of course, we need also to train them for exams. I don't neglect that. But we have systematic 360-degree assessment. So they are assessed not only in academics, but also in their leadership qualities and in the 21st century skills. And no child is a failure in everything. So we will always be able to have a conversation with the children about where they succeeded, but make it a natural thing also to see that, okay, I didn't do well there, I have to improve. So this culture of learning and improvement through feedback and assessment is a very important part of that. And if they have that, what can you call it? If they self-knowledge, then it's not a catastrophe if they don't do well in everything, because they know how good they are, because we have talked about it all the time and we have set new goals for it. So I think it's possible, and that's what we are working on, to take the stress factor out of assessment and instead make it a feedback culture where you are happy to get feedback you can learn from.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. And I would like to ask Mr. Agarwal, we had such an important document come out around the same time that your school started, the new education policy 2020. And you came into this whole school system with a very, an interesting vision. You wanted to incorporate some of these European ideas, some of these traditional Indian ideas, and some of your own vision. How does the document, how does the new national education policy align with your own vision? Or are there places where there are disparities? Is there anything in the policy that you think you could incorporate into your own system? Did it inspire you? Did it hold you back in any way? Please tell us about that.
As an Indian, I'm very proud with this new policy, the new document. I think we have been talking about this for at least 2 decades. And finally, there is a document which is forward-looking and forward-thinking, right? And there is no perfect solution. There is nothing called a perfect document, right? But the direction of the document, I think, is totally aligned. And when I saw this document, and I really smiled, right? And I said, thank God, we have a national policy or a national document which is now recognized, right? And then everybody will believe in it nationally. Yeah, that's the way to go. So there is no way to say that it's 100% or 100%, but the whole direction of the document is extraordinary, is forward-looking. It has incorporated the best of thought. And I think Alan should say more about this than me.
Yeah, when we talk about it, school, we see ourselves as a model NEP school because most of the ideas in the document are we already implementing now. We think also that we do even more than that because our leadership vision is even more ambitious. But all the main thoughts in the document are totally aligned with our thoughts. I think we will have a difficulty with the language, 3-language policy as a school with also an international curriculum. It will be difficult for us to have Kannada as a mother tongue, and it will not be for international schools, so it will not create a problem. But that's the only area I've seen where we are not totally aligned with the document. And I want to add also that for some people in India, the document may look a little fluffy and idealistic. And therefore, I think it's important to say to Indians that we are actually doing it. It's not impossible. You can do it. You have to have a lot of teacher training. You have to have a lot of leader training in order to do it. And I also think you need a technology basis, as we have with our iPad solution. So there are a lot of preconditions, but it can be done, and we are doing it. So we hope that we can have a role also as a private school, as something like a model school where teachers from other schools can come and see how it can be done.
Yeah,
because we want to be, I sometimes use the phrase, we want to be the future mainstream. We don't want to be extreme. We want to be mainstream. But right now, some might see some of our things as extreme, but they are not extreme. It's actually government policy in India.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we found our headline there, Chaman Bharatiya School, the model NEP school of India.
Yeah, that's my dream.
Yeah, and Alan, I was just thinking, you started this, it's now 13 months. The second batch must have joined. Tell us, what were your beliefs and expectations that were reinforced in these 12, 13 months? And I would like to know, what did you discover that you did not expect? It can be positive, negative. So what you experienced which was in line with your expectations, and what did you experience which was not in line with your expectations, positive and negative? And the same question to Mr. Agarwal. I'll start with Mr. Agarwal and then come to you. Mr. Agarwal?
I will roll this question to Alan because he runs the school, but I think the school is very well received, right? I think I think the parents have seen it. You know, I was afraid it should not be like it should not be seen that it's not a mainstream school. You know, I wanted children from all stratas of society to come and join the school. So we were very, very reasonable with the fees, right? We wanted that it should not become an elitist school. And so I'm delighted to see that parents from all strata, from everywhere, are admitting their children here. You know, there is nothing called elitism or, you know, from the lower strata or middle strata or upper strata. It is one strata of society in this school. You know, I have parents, I have children whose parents are very top business families, and I have children whose parents would be a dance teacher somewhere. Right? So that's delightful, and that's very good expectation. And Alan, you want to say, what are your expectations? How did you meet them?
Yeah, I never expected to start an online school. I didn't believe in online education for small children. So we postponed the opening of the school until we could see that COVID was there for some time to come. So I came to the conclusion that digital education is better than no education. So my biggest surprise has been how much you can do online with small kids. I was so happy in spring. We did our first project, I mentioned it before, about sustainable community. And all our children, even the earliest children who were 4 or 5 years old, participated in the project. And they defined something in their community they were concerned about. And we put the groups together cross classes, and they worked on their concerns. It could be some groups work with problems about stray dogs, some about monkeys, some about poverty, some about waste, and so on. But all of them were engaged, and they worked digitally. They were collaborating online only. They didn't meet. And when they presented this at our digital expo, they were so professional in the way they talked to the parents about what they had learned and how they had done the project. So even small first graders could talk about it freely online with their own parents, but also with other parents. They really knew their stuff. I didn't believe that was possible. And for me, it's a great takeaway for India also, because online learning can play a much bigger role in education than we have seen until now. Our experience is not at all in line with what newspapers are writing about low attendance and low learning. When we look at what has happened during the first academic year from they started when we had this, we started testing them to see the level, and we ended up testing them, we can see how much had happened. So they didn't lose anything academically. They were attending more than 90% of the lessons with the support from the parents. And I think one of the important good decisions we had taken way before was that every child should have their own gadget, because in that way they could take ownership of their learning. They were not dependent on the parents' laptop or phone or whatever, as it is in many families. So that was my biggest surprise, and we hadn't planned to be online. We had planned to have an advanced technological basis. I believe, especially in Bangalore, that technology should play an important role in education. You can personalize learning, you can create a lot, you can collaborate, but that you actually can do it online with small 4-year-old children, I didn't believe that. I don't say that it was easy, especially with the small ones. Their concentration span is not that big, so they were not sitting from 8 to 4 every day. They had fewer hours, and they had analog activities in between. So I was disappointed in the beginning that we had to do it, but by the end of the academic year, I was happy because it was nearly a school. But when I meet the children, they look so much forward. They love the building. They love to run up and down the staircase, and they love looking at it. So they miss being together. They miss the physical nearness, but they have learned a lot. Also collaborative and personal skills. So it has not been only academics. So when we could do so much in the virtual environment, I'm really optimistic about what can happen if we actually have the school in the building and get inspiration from the beautiful building we have designed for them. So I'm not really frustrated about anything. I'm positively surprised by what actually could be done. And I think I have to say, in our experience, online learning for early years and primary school is much better than you could conclude from what is being written in newspapers about it.
And why do you say so, Alan? Just succinctly, why do you say so? Though you already kind of alluded to that and detailed that, but in one line, why do you think it's so more effective? And it's, especially you're saying for young minds, who are in very initial stages of forming their beliefs, of understanding things. Why do you believe online is better for them?
It's not better, but as a component, it would be very efficient. It's better than nothing, but of course would have been better to have them. But there's one thing that we can do with technology, and we'll continue doing it even when children come to school, and that is a more personalized approach to learning, so that a class will not necessarily work at the same level with the same topics, but they will work on areas where they need to improve. And if a facilitator, as we call them, have a whole class with many different levels, it will be possible to create learning journeys for them all. Because when you talk to one child, the other children are working on their iPad. So they are not depending on talking to the teacher. They can be much more self-directed, of course, with activities created by the facilitators, but they can work in their own pace, and they can get assignments that are adapted to their level and their way of working.
Thank you so much. Mr. Agarwal, the Chaman Bhartiya School that you seeded in Bangalore, at some stage, are there plans to take it beyond the Bhartiya city in Bangalore, or do you think for now it will be only where the Bhartiya city will be there?
No, we are looking forward. Once we succeed with this, and we are already succeeding, we are already thinking it will be fun to take it everywhere we can. I want to bring it, to my city here. I want to take it to my city where I was born. So I am already in my head thinking a lot, and it's an extraordinary concept, and it will be very delightful and fun for me to take this everywhere I can take it.
Fantastic. And Mr. Agarwal, if there's one thing that you learned in the last 16, 17 months, putting the school together, I know you've been at it for almost 60 months, more like 5 years on this project. What is that one thing that has pleasantly surprised you about setting up the Chaman Bhartiya School?
I think I'm very, very surprised by the quality of teachers and our facilitators, as we call them, as Ellen said. I think we were looking for teachers who we could train, and I have to give all credit to Alan and his team. The first thing I said, the school is as good as its teachers and facilitators. And I must invite everybody to talk to our teachers, and as we call them, facilitators. You see, and this is something extraordinary, that if you talk to these facilitators, their confidence, their level of understanding, how they deal with their children, and they are not, the so-called, they are not there to dictate to the child. They are there to facilitate to the child. So the quality of training of teachers, and I give all credit to Alan and his team, this is extraordinary.
Fantastic. And Alan, as we try to complete this conversation for today, as we move forward, what should we expect from the Chaman Bhartiya School in Bhartiya City in Bangalore in the next 12 months, in the next one session? I'm not talking of 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, in the immediate future.
Yeah, in the immediate future, it will depend a little on if we can be a face-to-face school also. But the main thing is that we will continue the work that we started last year. We will have even more projects during the year, some projects in classes, some in departments, and some for the whole school. So problem-based learning, project-based learning will be an even more important part of what we will be doing. We will introduce our mentoring program, and we will introduce our passion projects. So this will be the most important new elements we will have next year. But the main thing, and I've also said that to the teachers, that it is to continue the good work, because what we have succeeded in is, and that's why we have, I totally agree with Mr. Agarwal that our teachers are extraordinary, but the main way they are extraordinary in is that they want to learn. When we started online, they said, we have never tried it before, but let's try it. And they did it. And we, of course, had a lot of professional development. We supported them, helped them, but the mindset was, okay, it seems a little difficult and we don't really believe in it, but let's get the best out of it. And with that attitude, I think there's no real limit to what they can do. I didn't, when we hired them, we said we want people with the right mindset. Then they can learn what they need to And we have a head of pedagogy and professional development. So that is very crucial to what we're doing. We have continuous weekly sessions with professional development. So it's not an individual thing to meet a challenge. It's a thing for the whole team. You can share, you can learn from the others, you can get help from them. So with that, depending on what the situation will be, I'm sure that we will have facilitators who will take the challenge and do what is necessary. When I said to them, now we have tried the online thing, the next thing should be the project, and let's do it from January. They said, okay, let's try that. We never tried projects before, but why not? And now they have learned it.
Absolutely. Alan, we wish you luck in your endeavor to build these young minds, young leaders into complete individuals who pursue their passion and make an impact. Congratulations to you, Mr. Agarwal, for setting up this school and bringing Alan and making your vision your reality. Alan, I'd be interested in the last 16 months. I know it was COVID and physical visits were less, but if you got important people like some of those who visited you in Denmark, in Copenhagen, trying to visit your new institution that you're building?
Yeah, in Copenhagen, they just came. Our building was well known. So when, for example, the Chinese Minister of Education came to Denmark, she wanted specifically to visit our school. So I didn't really do a lot to get them. And I hope we will create the same situation that people can see that we are doing something that is very interesting, so that when people visit India, a visit to our school should be part of it, because it's so inspiring to get visitors from other countries and other parts of the country.
I need to have Dr. Anurag Batra and Vasudha to invite you both to come with your teams and look at the beautiful building. We are trying to grow hydroponics and teach children to grow their own food, right? We have dance studios, and we have, you know, a nice cafe, and we have very, very nice things, you know, where children can, you know, enjoy themselves while they're getting educated.
That
So
sounds
Thank you so much.
wonderful.
And I'm sure me and Vasudha and our colleagues would take this opportunity whenever things are better and we can travel to Bangalore. We definitely do that. So grateful, and congratulations to you on setting up the Chaman Bhartiya School. I'm sure it will become an institution as time passes by and will fulfill the vision with which it was set up. And I'm sure these are initial days, but you've begun well. I'm sure you'll be able to build what you started to the level that you want to build. So congratulations. I'm sure it's an experiment that will be very, very successful. It already is in some way, and we look forward to more impact from the students that come out. They're young, so it will be some time before we can see the impact, but I'm sure it will become an institution in due course. So we wish you luck. We're happy that you started it. And Alan, congratulations for becoming the founding director and nurturing the institution. And congratulations, Mr. Snehadeep Agarwal, for having that vision, bringing Alan on. On behalf of BW Education and BW Business World, we'd like to thank you for your time, your inputs, your comments. And for those who missed this session, you can watch it on the YouTube channel of BW Business World or BW Education, or read it on businessworld.in or bweducation.com, or read it in the next issue of BW Education. Thank you so much. We'll be in touch, and we see you with another set of guests from the education domain who are building something that is exciting, that is for the future, and that creates leaders who make an impact. We'll see you next Wednesday, same time at 4:30 p.m. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you, Mr. Agarwal, and thank you, Mr. Anderson. Thank you.
Thank you.